Welcome to Politics News Wolf US channel. Russia's heavy losses in the Ukraine war are increasing more and more. The unarmed and unmotivated Russian soldiers, helpless against modern weapons, participate in offensive operations, knowing that even their commanders sent them to their deaths. The result is huge losses for the Russian army. The Russian army lost many elite units during the war. In particular, one of Russia's oldest elite units was officially depleted as the Ukraine war continued. Today we will talk about this unit and its current status as a result of its losses. Let's examine the Russian losses and the effects of these losses on the Russian army in detail. Leaked U.S. intelligence documents suggested that a large part of Russia's elite Spetsnaz special forces units were destroyed in the war in Ukraine. The highly trained and secret weapon of the Russian military, the unit faces years of rebuilding by the Kremlin before returning to pre-war strength. According to U.S. analysts, these elite commandos undergo years of extensive training and are considered the greatest soldiers in the Russian army. When Putin ordered his troops to cross the Ukrainian border in February 2022, senior commanders used Spetsnaz units because they were not fully confident that conventional warplanes would be effective on their own. Spetsnaz troops were ordered to enter Kiev in the early days of the war and kidnap the Ukrainian president, and they eventually failed. As a result, the Spetsnaz unit suffered significant losses as revealed by top-secret U.S. intelligence documents revealed by the leak that led to a national security investigation and the arrest of the National Guard. Recently, satellite photos of a base used by the 22nd Separate Spetsnaz Brigade in southern Russia were released. Comparing pictures from November 2021 to November 2022 reveal that the base was significantly depleted, indicating an extreme state of loss. According to the assessment, the 22nd Separate Spetsnaz Brigade along with the other two units saw a 90 to 95% attrition rate. It takes 4 years to train a Spetsnaz soldier in Russia, and it may take 10 years to renew the ranks of these special groups. Although it doesn't specify the exact number of Spetsnaz units killed or wounded in Ukraine, it shows that only 125 of the 900 soldiers remained, which means that most of the brigade was lost. And Russian officials said the Spar Brigade's missing information came at a time when the war was heating up for Bakhmut, as they resisted a coordinated three-prong attack by the Kremlin forces and efforts by the Ukrainian defenders to prevent them from reaching their supplies. The UK Ministry of Defence has reported that Russia has reenacted its offensive on Bakhmut in relation to recent developments in the eastern Ukraine, which had been the scene of Ukraine's longest and bloodiest battle of the war for 8.5 months. The Ukrainian defense still holds the western parts of the town, but has come under particularly heavy Russian artillery fire. In the past 48 hours, the ministry said until recently, the notorious Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group, sped the campaign to take Bakhmut, making slow and overwhelming progress that cost thousands of lives on both sides. Now regular Russian troops also joined. The offensive military analysts have said that capturing Bakhmut would have public relations and technical military value for Moscow, but it was unlikely to be decisive in the outcome of the war. The Russian Ministry of Defense also drew attention to the escalating conflict in the western parts of the city. The Wagner assault detachments are conducting high-intensity combat operations to seize the western Bakhmut areas with air forces supported from the flanks, the ministry said in a statement. The Russian Defense Ministry also provides support to the flank units of the Russian airborne forces, the attack teams, and stops the attempts of the Ukrainian army to bring ammunition and reserve forces to the, partially refuting a statement. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry stated that Russian airborne forces had arrived in BMO, but suffered huge losses against the Ukrainian defense forces and had no effect on the Ukrainian supply route. The deficit of Russian professional soldiers lost during the Ukrainian war was tried to be filled with untrained soldiers with the decision of partial mobile. At this point, these untrained soldiers constitute more than half of the Russian troops in Ukraine, and the Russian army is inflicting huge losses. Since they have no combat experience or war training, these professional soldiers are not just soldiers of the Spetsnaz unit. The 331st Guards Parachute Regiment, often referred to as the Kostroma Airborne Regiment, became quite the hot topic shortly after the start of the war. This revealed the price paid by the regiment and its own. By April last year, 39 deaths from the 331st Regiment were confirmed, and 62 by the end of July, and now the death toll has risen to 94. This data was confirmed by satellite images from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry in the region where the 331st Brigade was deployed. Satellite images showed the graves of soldiers in a cemetery northeast of Koro. The tombs shown completely matched the names of the soldiers who were declared. The actual death toll of the 331st Regiment is probably much higher. Some of the soldiers come from towns outside of Koro, which makes finding information about them much more difficult. Many soldiers were reported missing and some could be counted among the dead. Considering the seriously wounded or captured soldiers, it is reasonable to assume that the Ukrainian war cost the regiment several hundred soldiers. The loss of life in Koro, which is about 300 kilometers northeast of Moscow and has a population of about 250,000 people, caused a lot of comment. Officials noted that the entire Soviet-Afghan war, which lasted 9 years, cost the city 56 soldiers. But heavy losses in Ukraine gave local authorities a difficult task of political administration. Sergei Skov, the Kremlin-appointed governor of Castro, was at the forefront of attempts to convince the people that the city's soldiers were properly supported. Governor Kov's visits to hospitals, barracks, and even the front were broadcast on local television. During a visit to the front, in recent months, Governor Sitkov said that the soldiers should be helped to have suitable conditions. He had brought with him crowd-funded maintenance packages and commercially available drones. Governor Sitkov is Putin's hometown aide, so he's not a rebellious or fearless narrator of disturbing truths, but his willingness to visit the front and admit the shortcomings even in a codified way is an interesting contrast to his. When the 331st Regiment showed the mobilized paratroopers at the parade ground about 6 months ago, Governor Sitkov said quite frankly to them, "I wish you good health, success, complete all missions and return home alive." The call of paratroopers as part of Russia's wider mobilization underscores the extent to which the Ukrainian operation has exhausted the country's professional army, of which the 331st Regiment is part of the demonst. In the footage of the parade, 150 soldiers of the regiment were shown before being sent to the front. The total size of the regiment is estimated at 15 to 1,700 soldiers. When first sent to Ukraine in February 2022, they deployed 2 battalion groups delivering a total of 1,000 to 1,200 soldiers. The regiment was withdrawn after suffering heavy losses in its attempt to reach Kiev, and was rebuilt in the garrison town of Belgrade in southern Russia last. Its subsequent actions showed that the regiment was moving through all the major flashpoints beginning this past summer in Iio, then Kherson, and now again in Donbas. By following the dates given in the death announcements from Castro's social media accounts, it's possible to understand when and where the unit was used to spear attacks and the loss experienced when it was pulled off the line to lick its. For example, a number of deaths over the past months indicate that elements of the 331st Regiment were engaged in Kray. The original troop cadre and the overall size of the unit shrank when the lost were replaced by partial mobilization decisions. Now the number of professionals at the front does not exceed 300 to 400 from the situation of the Spetsnaz Brigade and the 331st Regiment. One can summarize the current situation of the Russian. As the professional soldiers of the army die one by one and are replaced by untrained soldiers, the Russian army is losing power like never before. On top of that, if the rumors that 400,000 people will be mobilized again in the near future turn out to be true, and these 400,000 people join the Russian army, the already reduced power of the army will be reduced by half. So what do you think about this subject? Please express your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching the video. If you find it useful, please comment and share the video for us. It will make our channel more known. See you in the following videos. Thank you very much.